Hey everyone, you're at the Hub. My name is Matthew.
I'm Amy.
And we've been teaching adaptive yoga for a while, trying to help people learn how to not just do the outlines of poses, but work from inside to out to get a deeper connection to the happenings and what I would call the heart of yoga. And so one of our principles we've been talking about in previous segments that we're going to now talk more about it in terms of sequencing it into a class is the simple but profound principle that in order to go up, you have to go down. You have to go down to go up. And eventually, you can also teach it, you can go up and activate down. And that both of those energies are constant and simultaneous in every pose that you do. But now we want to talk about how to sequence that into a class, like without it being all heavy and deep. Like how do you convey such a simple insight that is so profound and then show how it goes through the body?
You know, Matt, one of the things that I first think about when we're having this conversation about down to go up, and we've been talking about, potentially putting belts on our students and blocks. And so often, and I'm guilty of this too, but so often in a class, as the class is starting, everybody's talking, and we always start late because we're building our communities. But we set our students up, with whatever they like, with the belt, with the block, and we don't make that part of the practice. And one of the challenging things when you start teaching adaptive yoga is you're trying to figure out how you're going to fill a class. What do I do with this silent space? But actually, making that part of the practice is a really good way for your students to begin to discern different sensations. So, you may choose to set them up to start a class, but at another class, you may choose not to. And part of the class then becomes starting one way and then adding a block and then adding a strap. And each time adding in a little bit more reference, a little bit more boundary, and having them begin to go inward and feel that sensation rather than just putting them in a position and saying, okay, now let's go ahead and do some movements.
And sometimes you can do that too.
And sometimes you
Right.
can do that too. That's what I mean. I think there are different ways to fill a space depending on what you want to teach your students. But over time, you want your students to become good yoga students and to really notice the sensation. They don't want to block just because they want to block. Maybe they want to block because it really does help them find that midline and that chest lift. So helping them realize even the very simple things we do to help them find boundary, I think is really important.
Boundary, but also I think like adding and then taking away and adding. The contrast is how they're learning.
Absolutely.
So by doing stuff like that and then asking them to participate, asking them questions is part of what allows for the discrimination necessary for enhancing inner awareness. Without ways to discriminate inner awareness just becomes meditation, which is powerful, right? But isn't asana exactly. That's why they're different limbs. And so you're wanting to get them to be able to go in and discriminate different sensations, which by doing that, they're already practicing pratyahara, because in order to discriminate more subtle things, they're not like going out through their eyes as much. They're having to go back, in, up, and down. And that's all part of what's required to teach this. And so how might you bring it into more of a sequence into a class? You might start that way, but then where might a class for you go? And you teach ambulatory students, for example.
I teach ambulatory, and I teach wheelchair users too, depending on what class I'm teaching. But yeah, I think you depending on what you're going to teach. Sometimes you just want to practice yoga, and you'll get somebody set up. But from there, once I've created that base, I will bring that to their attention, and then say, and now let's grow out of that. And so then I would start maybe adding arm movements, or maybe we do a trikonasana, or start, and again with a trikonasana or something like that, maybe we start piecing that out. What do you love about a trikonasana? Is it that nice turn and lift of the chest? Is it the length of the side body when you come out here? What's the difference between a collapsed side body?
And I might have them teach a collapse. I might go into the collapse and go, wait, look at how much control and resilience you have. Now move your rib cage, right?
And lift that and feel the length of that, and then I might add something. So you could take that and you could make an entire class that way.
And for example, when you come forward, you can do that, or when you come forward, what part of your body did you leave? Where did you lose awareness? Where you gain awareness? Where's the momentum going? Where's this going? All of those things are going to be necessary for a student who can't move as well to start to get the inside of the pose so they can, even if they can't hardly lean over, they can still lean over a little bit and open. And so these are the ways you start doing it. Like you start making them and helping them have different experiences, which they can keep coming at it from other directions.
And recognizing that those little energetic instructions that you give, those are the instructions that give everybody in your class a place at the yoga table. Because everybody can be working on an inward, with the inward awareness piece, even if they can't bring their arm out over their head or kick their leg out or whatever the case is. But everybody can be doing those pieces, and that allows everybody in the class to be participating.
And so I might even do things like have them do something and then over-clench their jaw and see what that does to their pose, or do something weird. Because I think if you don't have some goofy energy in this, you're in trouble. So you might even have like, pop your eyes out of your head and do the pose and see what that feels like. And you start like showing them that there are so many things that can change in any movement. They start to realize freedom. They start to realize that they're not just trapped in the one position all day. Because for someone that's in a wheelchair all the time, that's part of the trap. We've had Angelique talk about getting stuck. She's someone that lives with chronic pain, is a wheelchair user. Like when she's in a lot of pain and she doesn't feel like she can escape, right, that then the pain gets worse. And teaching them the freedom of what it is to move, of what it is to open up and close back down, right? Because opening when you're sitting, right, when you're like this, the sensation of opening is also one of the really important sensations. Yeah, you might think of this as a back bend as a yoga teacher, but it's an opening sensation that creates an expansion in relationship to the down that's going through the legs and the energy that's coming up this way. Because then all you do when you're sequencing a class is you start layering in extra things like the movement this way, the movement that way, the belt here, the belt there. And of course, when you start layering breath, where do you think your breath starts from? So just at home, just like don't hold your breath, but just stop breathing for a second. Where does the inhalation, and then breathe here soon, where does the inhalation start from? Nowhere. Then it comes through your body. So there are a whole bunch of ways when I have to go to the place at the end of my exhalation, before I start the inhale, I have realized a down and then start using my breath to go and expand. You can also then start layering in breath to this stuff. Breath is going to do even more than just one direction, though. Breath is going to start going in multiple directions, which is where we're going at the hub in the next session. Hey, I'm back. If you liked what you saw, there's more coming. To keep up with new releases, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on your notifications.